TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. In a very rare attack, Palestinian Islamists launched a rocket from the northern Samaria district toward Israel's central communities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledges to change the equation against Palestinian terror in Judea and Samaria. The IDF, ISA, and police top commanders release a joint statement deploring acts of Israeli terrorism against Palestinians. A very rare incident occurred this morning when Palestinian Islamists indiscriminately launched a rocket from the area of the Palestinian city of Jenin in northern Samaria toward nearby Israeli communities. After footage surfaced on social media purporting to show the referred to rocket launch, the IDF spokesperson's unit released a statement confirming the attack, while further noting that the projectile exploded in Palestinian territory. Thankfully, no injuries were reported, and according to the IDF, the rocket did not pose a threat to communities in the area. Meanwhile, the IDF highlighted that the incident is under review. Separately, Israel continues to successfully exert pressure against terror elements throughout the West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria, and is seemingly widening its toolbox to contend with changes in the field. IDF, ISA, and Border Police Special Operations Forces conducted extensive counter-terror activities overnight, during the course of which 10 suspected terror operatives were successfully apprehended. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed at the start of his weekly cabinet meeting that Israel's security establishment repeatedly changes its equation vis-à-vis its enemies.
In Operation Guardians of the Walls, we changed the equation with Hamas. We set it back a decade. Hamas has not fired a single rocket from Gaza at Israeli territory for several years. In Operation Shield and Arrow, we changed the equation with Islamic Jihad when we targeted its leadership in Gaza. Last week, we changed the equation again, this time against the terrorists in Judea and Samaria. The IDF and the security forces used a UAV to target terrorists in Jenin, and this is a sign of what is to come. We are taking a vigorous policy that allows the IDF to use all the tools at our disposal to defend the security of the citizens of Israel. I give full backing to our security forces, to our soldiers, who are doing excellent work.
Amid voiced criticism embroiled with foreign political pressures aimed at Jerusalem's construction policy in territories which the international community regards as, quote, occupied Palestinian lands, Netanyahu also seized the opportunity to emphasize that Palestinian terror will be met by deepening Israel's roots in its ancestral homeland.
For years, I have been saying that the proper response to terrorism is to fight the terrorists and, at the same time, to deepen our roots in our country. Indeed, we have been targeting a record number of terrorists and also building in our country on a broad scale according to approved construction plans. I emphasize approved.
The latter emphasis pertains to a marginal group of Israeli extremists who've taken it upon themselves to erect outposts throughout Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley illegally, and have recently also ratcheted up violent acts against Israeli forces and innocent Palestinian civilians alike.
Calls to grab land illegally and actions of grabbing land illegally are unacceptable to me. They undermine law and order in Judea and Samaria and must stop immediately. Not only will we not back such actions, our government will take strong action against them. These calls and actions do not strengthen settlement. On the contrary, they hurt it. I say this as someone who doubled settlement in Judea and Samaria despite great and unprecedented international pressure to carry out withdrawals that I have not carried out and will not carry out. These calls hurt the vital interests of the State of Israel, and they must stop immediately.
It is important to note that the referred to group of Israeli extremists have seemingly stepped up attacks against Palestinian civilians in recent weeks, a rise in attacks which have become particularly evident since the deadly Palestinian terror attack near the Israeli community of Eli, in which 4 Israelis were murdered and 4 others sustained injuries. As a result, a growing number of leaders in Jerusalem have deplored those acts of violence, collectively emphasizing that Israel is a state of law.
I strongly condemn the violence. We are a state of law, and whoever breaks it or acts against the law should pay the price. And I know for certain, and I trust the IDF to do its work.
It is important to highlight that Israel's top security establishment has openly warned against this marginal group of Israeli extremists, asserting that their attacks against uninvolved Palestinian civilians, including on Saturday morning when they entered the Palestinian village of Chafa and set fire to houses, vehicles, and other property, were for all intents and purposes perpetrating nationalist terrorism. Moreover, in a joint statement published by IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, ISA Director Ronen Bar, and Police Chief Commissioner Yaakov Shabtai, the 3 top commanders described the recent surge in attacks against Palestinians as being contrary to every Jewish ethical value and is damaging to Israel in several different ways, including by directly enticing additional acts of Palestinian terror against Israelis. It is crucial to highlight that while the defense establishment is increasingly concerned by the rise of attacks against Palestinians, these same radical Israeli groups are equally violent against IDF and border police forces operating to uphold Jerusalem's directives throughout Judea and Samaria.
I speak to commanders and soldiers and hear the reports. Therefore, I'm very concerned from what I hear. There are attacks of a radical population group against IDF commanders, against IDF soldiers. These also include physical attacks. This is very dangerous and worrying. From here, I turn to public servants who target the Chief of General Staff, the ISA Director, and Police Commissioner. They target IDF commanders who operate in the field, division, and brigade commanders. I tell you, public servants, including members of parliament and ministers, if you want to attack anyone, attack me. I am the defense minister. I am here to protect the IDF. Don't touch IDF troops. They represent all of the people of Israel and protect all of us, and we must enable them to do their work. We will not accept harm to the IDF. We will not accept harm to IDF commanders, and whoever does so will be brought to justice in the most severe terms.
It is important to explain that these radical groups, which are commonly referred to in Israel as the Hilltop Youth, have known, albeit currently indirectly, connections to both Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, among other senior officials from their respective parties. These connections have seemingly triggered a string of allegedly associated Israeli ministers and members of parliament to rebuke Israel's defense establishment, calling on them to fall in line with the so-called right-wing government in Jerusalem. Nevertheless, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decried those statements, asserting that there is no place for lashing out against the people who lead Israel's struggle against terrorism. Meanwhile, in Washington, the U.S. National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby, responded to a question related to the rise in West Bank violence, which included an attack last Wednesday on Palestinians who also hold U.S. citizenship.
We've certainly seen reports now of U.S. citizens at risk and potential victims here, actually having become victims of some of the violence, and we're actively engaging with the government of Israel about that. Several U.S. government officials visited the West Bank and met with the victims of this violence in a place called Termasaya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And consular officials have been providing assistance to U.S. citizens as requested. So we'll continue to stand ready to do that. Look, I'll say it again for the I don't know how many time, we condemn all acts of violence. We certainly extend our condolences to the families of those that were affected. We issue a speedy recovery for those that were injured, but the violence isn't helping reduce the tensions at all. And when you have a situation like this, leadership is really required, leadership on both sides, to stop the violence and to be demonstrable in doing so, so that the tensions can be turned down. That's what we want to see.
Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan held a phone conversation with his Israeli counterpart, Tzachi Hanegbi, over the weekend, during which he initially underscored the administration's unwavering support for Israel's security, as well as its right to defend its people against Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other terrorist groups. Separately, Sullivan also expressed the Biden administration's deep concern, as he put it, over the recent extremist settler attacks against Palestinian civilians and the destruction of their property in the West Bank. He reiterated the importance of holding accountable those responsible for such acts of violence. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our productions and would like to help sustain TV7 Israel's ongoing operations, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider making a financial contribution. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I would like to encourage you, pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.